Alright, this lesson is about percent equation. Now, the percent equation is very similar to the last lesson, which was the percent proportion. Now, we're just going to take the percent proportion, which if you all remember was two ratios. We had some sort of part of a quantity over a whole quantity. Alright, the last example was for example 1/2 is a part over a whole. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to our percent ratio. Now we're just going to write it as percent, and this must be written as a decimal or a fraction. Alright, so you cannot have, for example, 50%. You could have 50 over 100 if you wanted to, or you could have 0.5 if you wanted to, but this one you could not have. Alright, so let's erase that. So now we're going to determine what our equation is going to be. So we need to get rid of this whole in the denominator. We don't want any more fractions. So what we're going to do in order to get rid of this, we're going to multiply, because that is the opposite operation. We're dividing, so we need to multiply. So we're going to take our part over our whole. We're going to multiply it by a whole, and whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other side. So that equals our percent multiplied by a whole. Alright, so in fact these two cross out and we are left with some sort of part equaling the percent that is written as a fraction or a decimal. Remember, fraction or a decimal, multiplied by a whole. So this is our percent equation. So we're going to be using this to determine percents and parts and wholes in the upcoming examples. So, example number 1. Alright, what number is 12% of 150? So keywords here is number. Key numbers is 12% and 150. So if you go back to our percent equation, it is part equals percent multiplied by the whole. So we have some sort of part equaling our percent multiplied by a whole. Okie dokie, so let's get going. Our part is what we're looking for, so we're going to give it a variable. So let's say P for part, and that equals the percent, which is 12%, as a decimal or a fraction. I'm going to turn it into a decimal for my likings. So we have 0.12, and we're going to multiply that by our whole, which is 150. Okay, so if you do this simple multiplication on a calculator, you end up with P equaling 18. So what does that tell us? What does P equaling 18 tell us? It tells us that 18 is in fact 12% of 150. Alright, example number 2. Okay, so example number 2 says 13 is 26% of what number? So again, we're going to use our percent equation. So we have part equaling the percent multiplied by a whole. Now, all you need to do is substitute these numbers in and figure out what it is you're looking for, okay? So do we have the part? In fact, we do. It's 13. Do we have the percent? We do. It's 26%. And in this case, we're going to be looking for the whole. All right? So let's write that down. Our part is 13, and that equals the percent written as a fraction or a decimal, 0.26, multiplied by the whole, which we need to give a variable to. Let's just give it W. All right, so this looks a lot like the equations in the previous unit. So we have 13 equals 0.26 W. Now, in order to solve for W, remember, we need to use the opposite operation. So we divide by 0.26, and whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other. 0.26, these two cross off, we're just left with W. So we're left with W equals whatever 13 divided by 0.26 is. So remember, the calculator, you read downwards. So when typing it into the calculator, you will go 13 divided by 0.26, not the other way around. Okay? And if you do that, you will get that W equals 50. Now, what does that tell us? That tells us that that tells us that 13 is 26% of 50. Who knew? Who knew that 13 was 26% of 50? Now let's review how we did these examples. So on the first page, we just have the definition of a percent equation, which we used the percent proportion to figure out. We multiplied by a whole on each side of the equation, and we figured out that the percent equation equaled a part, which is equal to a percent multiplied by a whole. We applied this to two different examples. In this example, we were missing the part, and so we gave the part a variable name, and we substituted in what the percent was, which was 12%, as well as the whole, which was 150. And we just solved that using simple mathematics. Now, the next one, we were missing the whole, and so it got a little trickier. We needed to do some algebra here. We needed to solve this equation by dividing by 0.06 and then dividing by 0.06 on this side of the equation side. And so if we do that, if we divide, we get that W equals 50. So our whole is 50. So 13 is 26% of 50. So that's the percent equation.